I'm taking a look at the B751 today, which is a Bigme device which is focused on reading. If you're thinking about whether you ought to go for a Bigme or not, then the reason to go with Bigme would be price, and they're kind of playing that pricing game at the moment. That's certainly how Bigme are approaching the market, because it's getting a little bit confusing with them. I've been reviewing some of their devices before, and quite a similar device to this is the S6, which has a Wacom pen and is a little bit bigger. This is more in the size of a kind of Kindle Oasis. It's a 7-inch screen and might be comparable to a kind of book's page. This is a book's leaf, but a book's page size. It does have page turn buttons as well. Let's get it out of the box and see. Let's get the specs out of the way. B751c. If you really want an entry into a Kaleido free screen at this size, mostly for reading, it might be a good option. I think this is the cheapest way to get a Kaleido free screen. And Kaleido free is the latest color e-ink, and it's actually quite good. There's a black and white version which is around £200 as well, so it's not that much cheaper really. But the price of this is certainly a lot less than the Tab Mini, for instance, which is the device I would recommend if you wanted a smaller Kaleido free screen from books, that is. But it's not that much less than the Bigme S6. The Bigme S6 Color Plus is about £330. Or actually, I'd recommend, if you really were wanting Kaleido free, probably to go up to the Kaleido free Inknote Color Plus Lite, which is only £350-ish at the moment. So there are good deals to be had with Bigme. As I say, they're really playing this game at the moment where they've got essentially 3 different categories of Bigme. You've got Bigme devices which have a Wacom pen, have the best screens, they put lots of hardware into them, so they've got good amounts of RAM, all of those things. Then you've got the Goyu devices, which are kind of Bigme devices, just a little bit cheaper, so there's a few things stripped out of them. And then they've got these Bigme and JD Read collaborations, it seems, which are more focused on reading and are really the very entry level. So if you're thinking about an e-ink tablet and you're thinking price is your biggest issue, then you might want to have a look at Bigme, because you might find something which will fit your needs, but actually be the lowest possible price. One thing I noticed when looking at the website with this is they seem to have gone away with the Bigme pen, which I've always thought is quite big and chunky, and it has this Bluetooth set of buttons which I just never use. It's not my favorite pen by some distance, but it is Wacom EMR. So when I first saw this, I thought, oh great, they've gone away from that. I was really pleased about that, but actually this is a capacitive pen, which is just not as good as the Wacom EMR in terms of the writing feel. So this will not be the device for writers. This is a well-spec'd device though. It's an octa-core 2.3 GHz processor, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. It's got decent sized battery, it seems, 7-inch screen, 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of storage, and it has a SD card slot. It's got both front lights, cold and warm, and it's got the USB Type-C, which you'd expect. Let's have a look. Certainly the naming conventions are a little bit all over the place at the minute, but that's the way to think about it. Think about the kind of S and the Inknote devices being the premium devices, and then the Goyu and this B something or the other is going to be the entry-level stuff, the JD Read collaborations. It is very nicely packaged, if that matters to you at all. It's not super lightweight. Got your bump, which quick start guide will say turn it on and follow the instructions, I'm sure. Quality control stuff and your warranty. And it's got a USB-C cable. Handle it with care to avoid falling. Do not place heavy objects on top of the product. Creator of Color Ink Screen Smart Office product. Please do not use the product, it says. I don't know what that means. Indicator light, Type-C, microphones down there, and at the top here, power button at the top, speakers and page keys. That's the TF card slot at the bottom there. Yeah, it's not heavy either though, actually. That's quite a nice reading feel. So it's not a magnetic case, it's just a clip-in case. And it is a capacitive stylus, which means that it needs to be battery powered. If your prime reason for buying an ink tablet is for notes, I would recommend you go for one which is Wacom. And they've given us a couple of spare nibs, 2 spare nibs and a puller. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to film a sort of first thoughts, me testing out for the first time membership video. So if you're interested in seeing exclusive testing footage of devices as they come in, you can join the channel now, just below the like button. So generally, after having played about with the Bigme 751 for a short amount of time there, I can tell you it's what I normally conclude about Bigme devices, really, that the hardware's fine, but the software is just letting it down that little bit. You know, you're still getting to the point where you reach a part of the system and you get Chinese writing pop up, or there's lots of things that don't quite make sense. Like instead of OK, it's like, what was it, designate or something like that. So when a dialog box popped up, for instance, there was like the OK button said designate rather than OK. So it's just those things that aren't quite what you'd say are normal, you know. I think they just need to spend time with a Western software developer and let them sort of do the changes and do the kind of things that ordinary Western software would have. Now, I did point this out that you wouldn't use this for notes. I just want to make that point really, really clear. If I use a pen here, you can see the diagonal lines have this wobble in there. That is not my ordinary handshake. Vertical lines don't have that wobble. Horizontal lines don't have that wobble, but the diagonal lines do. And that is a hallmark of a capacitive stylus. It is just not for note taking. It's not that bad, and at a pinch, you know, if you just want to occasionally make a quick note of something, you could live with this. But I just don't think that it is going to be your choice if you're a full-on note-taking person. But then neither is this size. I have gone ahead and downloaded a book, and it is quite nice to be able to use the page turn buttons there. That works just fine. That's in an EPUB in their system. Although for some reason these buttons defaulted to, I had to go into the menu to change them from volume to page turn. You just think that's a feature of them, that it's got page turn buttons, and yet they aren't being used for that. And at the minute, I can't really see that they do anything in any other app. And certainly if I go into a Kindle, which by the way, the pre-installed Kindle wouldn't let me log in with my Amazon account. So I had to go to the Play Store and download Kindle again and get essentially the Western app version, I think. And look, the page turn buttons don't work in there. Again, I think you can change that and maybe make it work, but it's something that I certainly haven't got to work before. Things like OneNote do work. It does have this global handwriting mode where it can write on top, just the same as any other kind of integration with OneNote on an e-ink device. That's okay. The thing about Bigme is you can use that global handwriting, you can do that in any other app, so that's fine. But you wouldn't really want to do that anyway, because again, you're not really going to be relying on using this pen a lot. It has a lot longer latency than any Wacom EMR tablet that you could get. Now my question is, am I going to try and daily drive this at work, and could I use this for my planner at work? It's certainly a nice size, it's certainly a nice attractively made device, but I don't think that it's going to ever be a planner for anybody. So I think I'm probably not going to go ahead and daily drive this at work for testing, but I will commit to reading a book or two on here and bringing you that kind of conclusion after using it for what it's meant for. So one thing that certainly is something that I like about Bigme is the Meeting Notes app. The Meeting Notes app is really good because it transcribes what you're saying, whilst you can also write in the box here as well. And if you've got several speakers, they'll all pop up here as well, and it'll transcribe and it'll do its best to actually clean up your grammar and things like that. They've even added one more thing here, which I do quite like here. When I stop transcribing, I get the option to polish, and you see what it's going to do now is it's going to actually go pop that into ChatGPT and say polish this up, and look, it does actually do quite a good job. Yeah, well, I didn't say that though, so you've got to be careful. It's true, it seems to manage different accents quite well, but that isn't something that I said, so there we are, that's not ideal. I'm, however, finding that it's quite good and snappy in terms of like presses. I'm not getting missed presses. That's quite nice actually, and I think maybe reading some books on here might be quite a pleasure. I'm just going to have a quick look for you and compare it to some other things. The book's page, for instance, I had that up. The book's page is black and white, and it is £250, and they're sold out in the EU as well. It's a similar size device, a similar device in general, to be honest, but of course, black and white. Bigme S6, bigger device, better pen, cameras, page turn buttons on the actual case, quite a lot heavier I suppose. Yeah, quite a lot heavier indeed, but it's not that much more expensive than this anyway. Compared to this, the Kindle Paperwhite, similar sort of size. Paperwhite feels a little bit lighter, I think. They're about the same. But of course you can't do half of what you can on the Bigme on the Kindle. But then just to show you that size against an A5, a 10.3 inch tablet. This is the Bigme Inknote Color Plus Lite. You can see that's quite a lot more screen real estate. And here you are getting the benefit of having the Wacom EMR pen, just as you were on the S6 Color as well. So I personally think note takers, go with one of these two. Readers, yeah, you might well be at home here on the Bigme. If you're already a Bigme user and you fancy something which can have your notes sort of automatically synced across, then I wouldn't be shy of picking one of these up just as an extra reader, perhaps just for your travel reader. And you could still add to and interact with those notes with that, albeit limited, but still functioning stylus.